Welcome back, everybody. I had a subscriber message me the other day and they wanted to know what I have for ice fishing setup, so I'm going to do a video on this. I also will go over cheap alternatives so you don't have to get what I have, and I don't really have the most expensive stuff, but it's also not cheap. It's an investment to go ice fishing. But yeah, I'll go over all these for you guys. So the first thing you're going to need is an auger. And most people would say, oh, you need an ice fishing pole to start out for ice fishing, but you actually need to get through the ice. So first thing you need is an auger. I'm going to go over two augers that you can get, and then there are other ones you can get, but there's the motorized one and then the unmotorized one. So the first auger that you can use is the, hand one. So all you do is go here and you just turn it around like that. Since it's the new year and you're looking for a lot of exercise, this is a great option for that. Since trying to drill through 10-12 inches of ice with this is a workout. So now we'll go to the motorized one. So this is the motorized one that I use, and you've already seen in my video. This is an Eskimo Stingray. This is the cheaper end of the Eskimos you can buy. This usually runs between, depending on sales, to like 60 to 320 for price. You can get them used on Facebook or eBay or Craigslist. They're usually a little cheaper, but I recommend just going out front and buying a new one, and then you won't have to deal with any previous issues the previous owners have. Also, the hand auger that you can get usually runs for around $60 to $80, so that's a cheaper one too for starting out. Say if you want exercise and a cheaper alternative, that's the hand auger you can get. There are other augers that you can use, such as it's just the bottom part, the auger part, and you can get an attachment for a drill. So you can just use you have a DeWalt drill, battery drill. You can just use that, and that'll drill right through the ice. And there's also attachments you can get that gives you the handle like you get on the motorized augers, so you don't break your wrist drilling through the ice. I will mention you do have to do upkeep on these. Like the motorized, they usually use a solution, so you get your gasoline, and then they have their auger brand has a certain oil you can do a ratio mix with. So that's what I use with this, obviously. Also, there are battery powered ones like Ion and other augers, but those ones will run from $800 to $1,000. So those are the really expensive, but they're also battery powered, so you don't ever have to buy gas and worry about that, and they're very quiet compared to this one. I will add on too, you're going to want a gas tank for your gasoline mixture and auger. I know it seems silly I mentioned this, but I'm literally going to go over everything you'll need to have a successful fishing trip. Now you don't need as big as one I have, you just need a little 1 gallon. I got a 2-gallon one just because I'm going to use it a lot. Next up, you're going to need fishing poles. There are different types of poles you can get. Now, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't recommend going out and getting an expensive one, since unless you're serious, you can go ahead and get an expensive one. Do your research first, figure out what you need. For panfish, you don't really need a whole lot. You just need a smaller pole like this, and then usually, depending on what you buy, they don't come with line. I would recommend just getting a 2-pound, 3-pound test line, meant for ice fishing, and I would just ask your local shop about it for their recommendations. Then you need jigs with that pole. I will advise tungsten jigs are very pricey. They can run from about $2 to $3 just for one jig. So I would recommend starting out with lead, say if you're not serious about it. But the tungsten are really nice. They jig very well and they drop well because they're heavier than the lead. All around, they have better performance. And then for bait, waxies, I guess, are a simple way to go. You can get plastics too. Plastics will last longer. The live bait usually dies off very quickly, but you can just go to your local Quick Trips or any gas station or bait shop and they'll have them for you. Another pole that I like using is a little bit bigger one, and if you get a little bigger ice fishing pole, you usually try to put you have like a 10-pound test line on this. You can go heavier with line, and this is good for catching bigger game fish, so trophy crappies, northerns, walleyes, and so on for the bigger fish. But if you're just sticking to pan fishing, which I would recommend since it's usually a little more action with that, get a smaller pole with lighter line, and you should be good to go. The next thing is a cooler of some sort. You can use a lunch box, a bag. And this is so you can store your drinks, store your bait, food, whatever you need for the day on the ice. The next are ice scoops. They come in different shapes, sizes, designs. So there's the standard one here. This is an older version. Just has a nice scoop. This is another one. This has actually a little ice hole stabber. So basically, if you have a tip out and there's ice covering, or you find a hole that's already been drilled and there's a hole, you just stab it right through the hole and it chips right through it. It's very useful. And this one actually has a measuring tape, I guess, design on it, so you can measure your fish with this. So it's a handy, very handy tool. Now these usually run, I want to say between $10 and $30 depending on what you get. You can get plastic ones for a cheaper route of it, so that's what you can do with those. And these are, you need these for scooping through holes. And next, a 5-gallon bucket. This is very useful because if you don't want to go get a chair, this can be your chair. And then once you catch all your fish, you just put your fish right in the bucket. You got a nice bucket for carrying fish off the ice. So the next items are tackle. Now you can go to the extreme and have a huge tackle box. That's if you have a lot of jigs, lines, lures, tools. But I've been trying to travel lighter. And all I've been carrying around now is one of these. It's a smaller tackle for my tungsten jigs. It's way easier to carry things with the sled, since I use one of those, and it fits all your jigs just perfectly. Now I just use a Leatherman utility tool, and that's all you really need, because it has the pliers, the knife for cutting the line, and everything that you need. But you can go to the extreme and get one of the sets with the scissors, pliers, and then a little lanyard with other tools for fishing. Now another one that's kind of forgotten about. Now if you have a woods nearby your lake, you're okay, you can get away with it. But for you guys, bring a pee bottle. You can either bring a big one if you're going to be there all day and don't have to keep dumping the little Gatorade bottle out. But if you're going to be out for a short time, all you need is a little one. You have a pee bottle. So yeah. Now we're going to get into the more, I guess, advanced side of ice fishing. This is where the money factors really come in. I'm going to go over having a Vexilar or any type of fish finder, to the extreme of having fish finding cameras, a heater with propane, a shack to sit in to stay out of the wind and weather, a sled to bring everything with, and yeah, that's about it for the extreme of it. And also some tip ups if you get into that, and just minnow buckets and so on. So to start out, I use the cheapest Vexilar you can buy. It's the FL8 series. It's very basic. It has your radar source, the transducer, battery, which is super easy to charge. It's basically a plug and play for a charge. You plug it in the wall, and it charges. The battery lasts a very long time. I've never had it run out on me, and I've fished for all day, like 9 hours, 11 hours, and it's been good. I'll give you a little closer look at it. Very simple. Now these will run, depending if you get them used or brand new. I would say I've seen between $175 and $300 some. Now they do get more advanced than this. There's a FL12, 24, and then there's the deluxe pack, or whatever it's called. Those get up there. You can get some as fancy that are like $800. So now if you have the money, go ahead and get those. Those are way nicer, but all you really need is an FL8 to mark the fish. And this is a very great tool because you can find them by seeing their marks, along with seeing them come up as you're jigging. And you can see the depth of where the lake is. I have a Mr. Buddy heater. This is one of the more basic ones. You can get a bigger one or smaller one. These generally run, I want to say, like $30 to $75, so they're pretty reasonable. They're amazing because they'll keep your shack warm that you use. There are two ways you can hook it up. I finally this year switched over to the propane, bigger propane tank. So you gotta buy a filter and a hose so you can connect it. And these usually I think I paid 15, 20 bucks for it. And then there's the tank, the big tank. If you have any old ones lying around they haven't used in a while, what you can do is go to Menards and they'll give you a trade-in, and it's like $17.50 or whatever it is. and they'll just switch your tank out with one that's full, and that's basically your refill charge. Now if you don't have one, it's usually $35 or more just to buy a new tank, but it's way more efficient and lasts longer than the other tank I'm going to show you that I used to use. Now I used to use these little green guys that you can get basically anywhere. Now these are nice. You can get 4-pack a little cheaper, but they only last 4 hours tops on the high setting of a Mr. Buddy heater, and it can be kind of a pain, and I don't know how often you can actually really refill these. So I would recommend to start out with a bigger tank and the adapter, and it'll just last you a lot longer. And if you have a grill, you can just keep swapping it back and forth to that. Next is the shack. I use an Eskimo Quickfish. This is a 4-person shack as advertised. Now these usually run, if you get them used or new, I would say between 150 and 350. And there's different versions and brands. You can go on Amazon and get a brand new one for about, I would say 150 bucks, 100 bucks. So they're pretty cheap, and those are probably a 2-person ones. So if it's just you probably only need a 2-person pop-up shack. Now you can get them insulated or uninsulated. I would get insulated ones since they'll stay a little warmer. Now you don't even really need to get a shack. If you have a hunting blind like you use for turkey hunting or something around your house, those work just as well as an ice shack. So if you have one of those, start out with that to see if you really like ice fishing, and that's a cheaper alternative. Now they do get to extremes where you can get ones with sleds in them. Those get to be a little more pricey as you go. They're usually 400 to, I've seen, to 1,000, but those $1,000 ones have all the accessories with lights, heaters built into them. So start out, you can get something as simple as this. Now they are kind of a burden to carry. You carry them like a backpack out, and they're not the lightest of shacks. But like I say, I would start out small if it's just you. But if you plan on starting out with a buddy, get a bigger one, 4-person, because that fits 2 people pretty comfortably. A little more than that, they can get a little crowded depending how big you are. And then also I would recommend getting a sled. There's a few kinds you can get. I know you can get some at Fleet Farm for about 25 bucks. Now the only thing with these is they're not as deep. I'd recommend one getting a little deeper edges, because then things won't fall out as much if you hit a little curve or something, or a dip. We use one, a jet sled that was, I think, on sale for about 50 bucks when we got it. So you can get them between $25 and $150 I've seen. Now the bigger and more better ones you get are like Auger sleds. Those can get up there in price, and they can get big or small. So I recommend getting one with edges and fairly decent. Say it's only 25 to 150 depending on what you get for a sled. And I recommend those because it makes carrying things out on the ice a lot easier. So the next thing are tip-ups. They make a variety of these. The one I had, they don't no longer make them. What you can do though is set them up with treble hooks and use them for any type of fishing. So crappie, northern, whatever you want to catch. So you just put on crappie minnows, northern suckers, and so on. Now these aren't necessary, but I know in Wisconsin you can have 3 lines in the water at a time per person. So say you want to try to catch one of those, all you do is just drill a hole little ways where you think there's a runway for northern or walleye, and you can just set up your tip up right above the hole, and there's a little flag on it, and you set it up and the flag will pop up when a fish takes the line and starts pulling on it. As I say, these are useful if you just want to do a little more fishing along with your jigging. And tip ups usually run, depending on what kind you get, I've seen from $7 to $75 in that range. And the more expensive ones again are usually the nicer ones that have a little better quality. But I would say some are going in the middle or just slightly under middle. That's all you really need to start out. Now if you don't want to go the tip up route, there are things you can get. It's like a little pole that has a little spike on it. All you do is just jab it right in the ice, and it comes with, or you just wrap it with your own line, and you can put a little bobber on it. All you do is just drop it down in the hole, and then you can just watch the bobber while you're fishing. If it goes down, you have a fish, you just pull up and pull it out of the water. Now you can make these yourself. All you need is you can do just a little wooden dowel, and then you can buy even more little wooden dowels and use those as your pegs for wrapping the line, or you can just use nails and just pound a nail into the dowel, and then get a little hook screw like here, and then a spike to put on it so you can jab right into the ground, and that's all you really need. to start out if you just want to use a simple, I don't really know what these are called, but I can look it up for you guys. I got these from my great grandpa and grandpa, and say all you do is just jab it in the ice, and I've caught fish on this before. I just don't use it much because it can be a little bit of a hassle if you're just trying to jig. So now we're going to go over the cleaning process. So if you actually caught some fish and you want to enjoy them, I'm going to go over a few ways you can cook them and clean them, and what you can use for cleaning them and what you will need to clean them. I also want to give a shout out to one of our subscribers, Eric. He's the one that went and messaged me and suggested I make a video on what I use, so you can be a sweet fisherman or be as cool as Huncho Jellybean in his videos, as he said. So for cleaning the fish, all you need is a cutting board. You can go small, big. Now I recommend getting one that will actually fit the fish on the cutting board. Then you're going to want a fillet knives. So these aren't the one. This is the one that I use. I use a different one that comes actually with the sharpener in the blade holder. So I'd recommend if you're doing smaller fish, use a smaller fillet knife. It gets a little bit easier for trying to actually cut them up. Now using a big one, it gets a little bit harder because it's bulkier. And then another thing you're going to need is a plastic bag to put all the fish guts in, because you don't want those laying around. And those you can either, if you have a garden, just dump them in your garden, and those will make a good fertilizer when it comes springtime, or if you're not, yeah, actually you'll be in the winter time. Or you can just throw them right in the garbage if you have that type of disposal at your hand. Another thing I would recommend having is paper towels, because those are perfect for wiping off surfaces and cleaning things. So I would clean your surface before filleting for sanitary purposes. Another thing you can actually fillet them on are newspapers, I've seen. So you just get your table, put your newspaper on, and just fillet them like that. And those are easier to clean up, because you just pick up your newspapers and chuck them in the garbage when you're done. For tables, you can do them on your counter, but if you're living with your parents still, you have to double check with them because they might not like that. You can use small tables, just folding tables you use for parties and whatever, or just out on your back deck if you have to use that, or a workbench. Whatever it works is a hard surface, flat surface for filleting fish. Now when it comes to cooking them, you can either just fry them right in a pan, so you can use some butter. But I usually use butter if you're going to do that as your non-sticking stuff. Then you can season it with lemon pepper, seasoning salt stuff, or you just do seasoning salt, or just salt and pepper, whatever you like seasoning your fish with. And then the other one that I like to do a lot is fry them. We actually fried some last night from our fishing from the video before, and I went fishing last night. With that, there's a few ways you can do it. You can buy, it's called Shore Lunch, and that it comes in different flavors and seasonings, and that's real easy because everything's there. All you got to do is get egg and dip your fish in the egg, or buttermilk, whatever you desire, or just water. You just throw it right in the Shore Lunch. Or if you don't want to use Shore Lunch, you can use, I like to do a mixture of cornmeal and flour. So I'll just mix that together, and then I like to put a little bit of lemon pepper in that. There's a new way I tried last night after watching some other fishing videos, is you get Frank's hot sauce. You pour that in a bowl, so you take the fish, put that in the Frank's hot sauce, put it in the breading, then you put that piece into egg, and then put it back in the breading, and then you put it in the fryer. So you get a double breading, and you get a little bit of a kick with it, and it's actually really good. So I recommend that if you like a little bit of a spice with your food. If you're interested, I can make a how-to video on that eventually. I want to give a shout out to subscriber Eric. He messaged me the other day on Instagram, so don't forget to go follow that too. But he messaged me and he gave me some suggestions of what I can do with my channel and videos I can do, and one of the videos was this video, what you need to have a cool setup like Huncho Jellybean, as he said, and I hope you enjoy it.